Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here, and in today's video, going to be talking through a couple player props I like on Prizepicks for the NBA slate on Thursday, January the 19th. We got 5 games total for today. There's 4 games, at night, but we do have a game at 3 o'clock today. I was looking at the NBA schedule and I was wondering, like, why is there a game at 3 o'clock on a Thursday? But this game is being played in Paris between the Bulls and the Pistons. So there's a game starting. By the time I'm uploading this video, it'll be starting in a few hours. Not going to take any props from this game, but I do have 2 picks I like from the 4-game night slate. So we're going to talk through the 2 picks that I do like for today, guys. Just before we get started, as always, if you guys enjoy these Prizepicks videos, hit that like button down below. Hit that subscribe button if you have not yet. And if you guys are new to Prizepicks, if you have never checked out Prizepicks before, if you don't play over there yet, get signed up for Prizepicks. Use my promo code NOAH, and you will get your first deposit matched up to $100 when you do sign up with my promo code. If you bet player props on a sports book or any other DFS site and you aren't playing on Prizepicks yet, you need to definitely get over there. All the props I give out throughout my, on my channel, these are all going to be Prizepicks based plays. I give out a lot of fantasy score props, which are something that I like to play personally on Prizepicks, and I know fantasy score props are not ones that you can bet like on Sportsbook, or some other sites might not offer those either. That's personally what I like to play, and what I've had a lot of success betting. So definitely get over to Prizepicks, guys. Use that promo code NOAH when you sign up, and again, you will get your first deposit matched up to $100. Before we talk through our 2 plays for today, though, I do want to recap our plays from yesterday. Gave out 2 picks in yesterday's video. Split our 2 picks, so we didn't cash yesterday. We did hit the over on De'Aaron Fox fantasy score. Might have got a little lucky there with Domantas Sabonis getting ruled out late in the day. I know Fox's fantasy score projection jumped from like 39.5 to I think to like 45.5. And he went over his original line of 39.5. I think he came up just short of his bumped line. I think he finished with like 44 or 45 fantasy points, but most of you guys should have been able to get it in at 39.5. I think the Sabonis news didn't come out till like 4 or 5 o'clock Eastern time, so that was well after I'd made my video. Hopefully you guys all got that in at 39.5. Fox came through for us. Unfortunately, though, we did take the over on Miles Turner's points, and man, like the Pacers just got the crap beat out of them yesterday by the Thunder. I pulled up the game log, like the box score. It was like 2 or 3 minutes into the game, and the Pacers were losing 1-17. They had scored 1 point in like the first 4 minutes of the game, and as soon as I saw they had called a timeout after those 4 minutes, I knew like we were in trouble. And sure enough, after like the first 4 minutes of the game, the coach was already making substitutions. He was taking guys out just because I guess the offense got off to such a slow start. They kept Turner in for a few minutes, but he didn't play anywhere near his full minutes. I think he played like 20 minutes yesterday. The Pacers lost by like 30 to the Thunder. Just a horrible game overall from them. Really liked the spot for Miles Turner. Felt really good about that bet, and I think I would bet it again in the same spot. Just unfortunate how that game turned out yesterday. I know the odds on that play were really good. I checked DK Sportsbook before the game started, and Turner was like minus 150 to go over 17.5 points, and Prizepicks had already bumped his line up to 18. So it's one of those situations where you're on the right side of the play. You just unfortunate that that's how it turned out. But if the books give us that same line in the same matchup, I think I would take it again. Felt good about the spot. Just unfortunate how it turned out. But we got 2 picks for today, guys. Hopefully we can bounce back today, hit both these plays. Both the plays I do like for today are going to be fantasy score props. Like I've been saying, guys, I really like these fantasy score props. They're what I bet the most on Prizepicks, just because I've been playing DFS for so long, and I'm very familiar with the fantasy score system, with how the scoring works, and it's usually what I like to play the most. So the 2 fantasy score props I like for today, one's going to be from this Celtics-Warriors game, and I want to talk about Steph Curry's fantasy score, 42.5. I took this last game against the Wizards. It was at 42.5, and he went a good amount over. He finished with 48.4 fantasy points. I also took it the day they played the Spurs, and he had a pretty bad game. It was a really good matchup against San Antonio. I expected the Warriors to have a ton of success in that matchup, and they actually did. They put up like 150 points, but unfortunately, they blew out the Spurs. Curry didn't play anywhere near his full minutes, came up well short of his fantasy score. I played his fantasy score that day against San Antonio. Last game I played against the Wizards, it was one of my Patreon plays, and I gave it out on Patreon. There were a couple people that were doubting the play, that didn't want to play it. And look, man, you got to have a short memory when you play DFS, when you bet player props. If a guy burns you and it's a good spot next game, and you like the projection and you think it's a good play, just bet it again. It doesn't matter. Even if for example, Miles Turner. I know Miles Turner killed us all yesterday. If I really like the spot for their next game and I like the projection, I think the projection's too low. I'm going to go back to it. Just you got to have a short memory when you do player props, DFS, stuff like that. Luckily, Curry came through for us last game, though, when I took his fantasy score. And I think his fantasy score, once again, looks a little bit too low here. 42.5. This is a line that Curry, I know, has gone over in a large majority of his games this season. He's averaging 47 fantasy points per game this year. And you look at his per minute production has been really good this year. 1.39 fantasy points per minute is what Curry's averaging. He's leading the team in usage rate, to no surprise. Since he came back from his injury, his production was not great. Really struggled in those 3 games against Phoenix, San Antonio, Chicago. But he got back to a really good game last game against the Wizards. He put up like 41 points. He had 48 fantasy points. Also want to mention that his minutes got way up there last game. So it was the second night of a back-to-back, and they played Curry 38 minutes, even on the second night of a back-to-back. Given they played him 38 minutes on a back-to-back, that makes me assume that he is pretty much fully healthy. There's no minutes restriction moving forward. We can expect 36, 37, 38 minutes from Curry tonight if this game is close. And obviously, this is a game that should be competitive. It's a big-time game, rematch of the finals. Boston, they are favored by 6.5 here, but this game has a massive total, 240.5 total, which is the highest on the slate today. This should be a super high-scoring game. And I know, Boston's not a team we really like to target that much. They're a good defensive team overall. But this is a matchup that Curry has had some success in. They've played, obviously a ton throughout his career. Last time they played Boston earlier this season, Curry did have 48.7 fantasy points. Last time they played him towards the end of the year last year, he only had 3.2. That was a game he got injured in. And then if you look obviously you can look at his final stats, whatever. I try not to get too much into player versus team stats. I feel like those don't really matter that much. But Curry has had success against Boston. I don't think the matchup's too tough. He's probably going to be chased around by Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart's a good defender, but Curry is a matchup-proof player. We know he's going to be super productive when he's on the floor. His fantasy points per minute are really, really good this season. And I think a lot of that has been due to him rebounding and assisting more this year. Curry used to be a really scoring-dependent player, and in order for him to go over this fantasy score line, he would have to score 35, 40 points. That really hasn't been the case this season. We've seen Curry have really big games even when he's not scoring a ton. There's been games, let's see, if I can look through his game log and find some, let's see. So there was a game where he put up, 30 points, which is, a good amount of, that's a good scoring game, but he had 50 fantasy points in that game. He had, 10 assists. He had a steal and a block. There was a game against Minnesota. He had only 25 points, but he had 46 fantasy points. He had 11 rebounds, 8 assists. So he's been rebounding and assisting more this year. The defensive stats have been kind of there too. He's had a lot of games with a couple steals. He's had games with a few blocks. He's normally been a scoring independent player, but this season we're seeing Curry kind of contribute in all categories, and that's obviously great for his fantasy upside. When a player can get rebounds, can get assists, can get defensive stats, that just adds to their floor and their ceiling for fantasy. If you look at the fantasy score chart, you see how the scoring works. You get 1.2 per rebound, 1.5 per assist. You get 3 points per block and steal. You do lose a point for a turnover, but Curry, he tends to not turn the ball over too much. So I like this as our first play for today. 42.5 fantasy score, taking the over for Steph Curry. I'm expecting 36, 37, 38 minutes. When Curry plays his full minutes, I would bank on him going over this fantasy score more times than not, even in kind of a tougher matchup. This is a really big-time game. It's a game that's expected to be very high scoring. As long as Golden State can keep it close here, which I think they will, they're pretty much fully healthy for this game. I like Curry's chances of going over this fantasy score. So that will be our first play for today, and then our second play, another fantasy score. I want to talk about Pascal Siakam. His fantasy score is at 43.5, and I also like the over on this one as well. Siakam lately has kind of been a little bit up and down. He's gone over this line in 3 out of his last 5. Did have some disappointing games, even in kind of some, the game against Atlanta. I expected Siakam to play much better than he did. I thought that was a really good matchup. Kind of expected for him to struggle a little bit against Milwaukee. Milwaukee's a team that defensively has really limited center production this season. They're a really good rim protecting team. Milwaukee's definitely one of the toughest matchups for centers. But now he gets to face Minnesota, who I think will be without Rudy Gobert today. We don't have any word on Gobert's status, but Gobert did not play yesterday. It's the second night of a back-to-back. I have a good feeling that Gobert won't play today. I know Gobert, I think Gobert's played their, the last 2 games that he has played in, he's gotten injured in both games. So clearly the Timberwolves have kind of brought Gobert back a little bit too early, and it's caused him to get re-injured. So I would be very surprised if Gobert plays here on the second night of a back-to-back. So it'll probably be, Siakam going up against Naz Reid. And Naz Reid, I like Naz Reid as a player, but obviously he's not nearly as strong of a defender as Gobert is. Even Gobert, I don't really think he's that elite of a defender anymore. I would consider guys like, Brook Lopez, some of the better defensive bigs. Who are some other good defensive bigs? Like Brook Lopez, like the first guy that comes to mind. Mitchell Robinson's a good defensive big and stuff like that. But Siakam in this matchup against, probably Naz Reid, I think it's a really good spot for him. Minnesota this season's been playing at a fast pace. This is definitely an up and pace spot for Toronto. Minnesota's 8th in pace this season. This game has a relatively high total, 232 total here. The spread has moved from 2.5 to 5, which honestly makes me think, Gobert's not playing. Toronto was favored by 2.5, and now they're favored by 5. So there's obviously a lot of money coming in on Toronto to win this game, to cover the spread. Again, the line movement probably indicates that Gobert won't play here. So I'm expecting, a better matchup for Siakam, expecting him to play huge minutes. We know these Toronto guys, pretty much all their starters are going to play massive minutes. You look at their rotation last game against Milwaukee, they basically ran a 7-man rotation. These are the minutes for Toronto last game. Scotty Barnes played 37 minutes. OG played 35. Siakam played 40. Gary Trent played 43. Van Vliet played 37. And then off the bench, Achua played 26. Chris Boucher played 14. And Juancho Hernangomez played 7.5. 7.5 minutes, that's that's not even much playing time at all. That's not even really like a full stint. So pretty much they ran like a 7-man rotation last game, and we saw Pascal Siakam play 40 minutes. As long as this game is close, there's a legit shot Siakam plays 40 minutes. He's played 40 minutes in plenty of games this season, and he's been obviously a very productive player this season. Leads the team in usage, averages 1.24 fantasy points per minute. If he plays 38 to 40 minutes, averages his normal 1.24 fantasy points per minute, I definitely think he's got a good chance of going over 43.5 fantasy score. And you look at his PRA line, that's another thing I like to look at. If you're trying to decide which fantasy scores to take, sometimes just kind of comparing them to PRA can be a good thing to do. If you look at the PRA line for Siakam, it's only 4 points less than fantasy score. And Siakam is one of these guys that can get steals and blocks. Now, sometimes you'll see like a PRA line and a fantasy score line be very close. A lot of times that happens for guys like Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook doesn't get a ton of steals and blocks, and he turns the ball over a lot. So there's chances Westbrook could go over his PRA line, but not go over his fantasy score line. Siakam, on the other hand, could go over his fantasy score line, not even come close to PRA, because Siakam can get 2 or 3 steals, 2 or 3 blocks, and obviously for fantasy score, you get 3 points each for those. You compare to Scotty Barnes, his PRA versus fantasy score, there's a 6-point difference. For Van Vliet, it's a 7-point difference. For OG, it's a 7-point difference. For Siakam, it's only a 4-point difference. That seems a little low to me, given that Siakam is a guy that can get steals and blocks, doesn't turn the ball over too much. I like his over fantasy score quite a bit for today. I think this line is definitely a little bit too low. Even like Curry. Curry's is only 4 points lower, and Curry's not a guy that really turns the ball over too much. He can get steals and blocks as well. So these are definitely 2 fantasy scores that really stood out to me that I did like for today. I expect Siakam to play huge minutes here. Expect him to be productive on the floor, or productive when he's on the floor. I think the matchup will definitely be a lot better than people probably think. I don't expect Rudy Gobert to play today. Even if Rudy Gobert somehow does play, I'm not too worried. I think Siakam's one of these guys. He's really quick, can get to the basket. I think he's a guy that can definitely, he's just quicker than Rudy Gobert. I think Rudy Gobert does really well defensively against traditional bigs that are slower, that like to camp under the basket. That's not Siakam. Siakam likes to drive to the basket. He's a quick, athletic guy. And I think he could definitely give Gobert some trouble, even if Gobert does play today, which, again, I don't think he will. So these are the 2 picks I like for today, guys. 2 fantasy score props. Going to be betting on some star players here. Steph Curry and Pascal Siakam, both of them to go over their fantasy score, I do like for today. These are 2 picks I like when I'm recording this video right now, guys, but I'm going to have some more plays shared for today over on Patreon. I do give out Prizepicks plays every day on Patreon. If you want to check those out, they're linked down below in the description. Each play that I do provide on Patreon, I do give a full write-up for, so I kind of explain in detail, basically like I do in these videos. I do that on Patreon as well. It's just written form instead of me talking. Check those out, though, if you are interested, linked down below in the description. But as always, guys, hope you enjoy these Prizepicks videos. I hope they do help you. Hit that like button if you enjoy. Hit that subscribe button if you have not yet. And again, if you're new to Prizepicks, get signed up over there. Use that promo code NOAH when you do sign up, and you will get your first deposit matched up to $100. But good luck on this slate, guys. Thanks as always for watching the video, supporting the content. Appreciate you guys a ton. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.